public hearings on our agenda tonight. But before we begin, I'd like to have you all stand to join with us in the Pledge of Allegiance. As we do that, Scout Troop 3529 and 3074 will be conducting they'll be posting the colors. Okay, thank you very, very much to the Scouts in Troops 3529 and 3074. Both of these troops are from the Poplar Grove area. So you guys did a great job. What I want you to do, though, is if you could all come to the front. Okay, so walk right up here to the microphone. You'll have to pull it down. And what I'd like you to do is just introduce yourselves. Tell us your name, where you go to school, and what you like about Scouts.
My name is Jarius McCarthy. I've been in Scouting for 3 years. I go to school at Eastwood Elementary in Granite School District, and I like Scouts because it's preparing us for the future things that may happen ahead, so like natural disasters such as wildfires, tornadoes, or earthquakes.
Hi, I'm Logan Witham. I've been in Scouting for 3 years. I go to Ensign Elementary, Salt Lake City School District. I like Scout because we can learn about stuff on the internet, what is good and what is not good for us.
My name is Khalil, and I go to Franklin School, and what I like about Scouts is that I can learn new things, and I've been in Scouts for 2 years.
My name is Alexander Alfaro. I go to Wallace Stegner Academy. I like Scouts because it helps our community.
Thank you very, very much. And if I had the ability... If I had the ability, I would adjourn this meeting right now because it's only going to go downhill from there. Scouts, thank you very, very much. At this time, because we do have a couple of public hearings, there are some codes of conduct that I'd just like to remind you of. We are in a historic building, so I ask that you don't stand on the chairs or lean against the walls. When others are speaking, please no booing or clapping, jeering or cheering. We just want to make sure that everyone is comfortable in speaking to the council. So if you follow those rules, we're all going to be great. So at this point, I will look to the council
Chair.
for a motion.
I move that we approve the work session minutes of Tuesday, September 4th, 2018, Tuesday, September 11th, 2018, Tuesday, September 18th, 2018, Tuesday, October 9th, 2018, and Tuesday, October 16th, 2018, as well as the formal meeting minutes of Tuesday, October 2nd and October 30th of 2018.
Second.
Great. So a motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously and the minutes are approved. So we'll now move to item B on our agenda, which is our public hearings. The first public hearing that we'll be talking about is an ordinance regarding Wasatch Community Gardens Master Plan and Rezone. If you are interested in speaking to this, please fill out a white card and hand it to one of our staff people who are on each side of the room. I only have one card right now. It's from Robert Goodman. Robert, if you're here.
Good evening. Thank you to the council and thank you to the mayor's office. I would just like to speak in support of this ordinance. I believe a more robust community gardens, the Wasatch Community Gardens is a good thing, and I support it. And that's essentially it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Is anyone else interested in speaking about the Wasatch Community Gardens Master Plan and Rezone? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, move the council close this public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Kitchen, second by Councilmember Mendenhall. Any discussion to this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously and the item is referred to a future agenda. The next public hearing is an ordinance regarding 230 West, 2nd South, zoning amendment block 67, phase 2. There has been an issue with the way that this was noticed. The address was incorrectly stated, and so normally we wouldn't be able to go through with the public hearing, but because you are all here, what I would request is that when we get to the general comments to the council portion of the agenda tonight, that anyone who is interested and here to speak about block 67 speak to us during that time. And then that way you will still be heard and we're able to move that forward.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just add
Yes.
that we will be renoticing the hearing correctly, and we'll let you know about that date. It would likely be the 27th, is that right? Or would it be on the 4th? It would likely be on December 4th. So we'll have an actual public hearing about this item on December 4th that will be formally noticed. But since you're all here, you can
Yeah,
speak
if you're
at the
here,
general comment
yeah, since
period.
you're here, please, still speak to us. I'll give you a reminder when we get to the general comments. So we'll move to item number 3 on our public hearings, which is an ordinance regarding the update of the major street plan of Salt Lake City Transportation Master Plan. And I have 2 cards here. The first is from Dave Iltis and the second from Robert Goodman.
So this is part of the northwest quadrant and inland port area. And I wanted to ask you, when you look at this ordinance, to make sure that the Complete Streets ordinance is being followed out there. There's a roadway that goes into this new Stadler Rail facility where the Complete Streets ordinance does not appear as though it's being followed. Even though this is industrial and far off the beaten track, doesn't diminish the importance of complete streets and walkable areas for people who work out there or who would like to commute out there in something other than a car. The Northwest Quadrant Master Plan, please ensure that that's being followed in this area in regards to bicycling. This was something that was worked very hard upon, and so please don't disregard this in approving this streets update. 5600 West is being redone right in the area of this streets plan update, where it would be very helpful if the council would protest to UDOT about the direct diamond interchange that they're wanting to put in, which is basically a death sentence for bicycles and pedestrians. It is one of the more horrendously designed bike and pedestrian unfriendly projects that's going in. And lastly, yeah, just please follow the Complete Streets ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. Second card is for Robert Goodman. And again, as I failed to mention, each speaker will have 2 minutes to make their points.
Thank you to the council. I'm a homeowner in District 5. Let's see, my name is Robert Goodman. Yeah, I would like to kind of echo David's comments as well. I would like the major street plan to adhere to the full street compliancy there. Furthermore, I would be in support of streets that would prioritize bus routes for better public transportation. With the inverted air, about 50% of, a little over 50% of the pollutants in the air for CO2 emissions from automobile vehicles. Moreover, we live in a commuter city. About 80% of the workforce commutes into Salt Lake City. With the inland port expansion, I would imagine that that's just going to get bigger. So overall, I would like to kind of see the prioritization of alternative modes of transportation with this major street plan being implemented in the IPA zone. Thank you so much to the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodman. Is anybody else interested in speaking about the update of the major street plan of the Salt Lake City Transportation Master Plan? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing, suspend the rules, and adopt the ordinance amending the major street plan of the Salt Lake City Transportation Master Plan. And I further move that the council adopt the following legislative intent. It is the intent of the City Council that any future configuration of streets in the northwest quadrant preserve the character of the frontage road parallel to Interstate 80 that is part of the Bicycle Recreational Trail Number 3 to the Great Salt Lake Marina and is connected to the Airport Bicycle Trail.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rogers, or second by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion to this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Public hearing number 4 is regarding an ordinance of the amended bid requirements for building improvements and public works projects. I have a couple of cards here. So what I'd like to do, I'll read 2 names. If you are Calvin Fors, come forward now. And Russell Lamoureux, if you can be next.
I think they're going out of order here.
My name's Russell Lamoureux. I'm the business manager for the IBEW Local 354. That's the electrical workers in the state of Utah. I'm also the president of the Utah Building Trades Council. I'm here to speak in favor of the amendments that are being proposed. The members of my local that I represent, as well as the other trades, all adhere to the laws of the state of Utah, are licensed properly, and everything else. Work for contractors that all offer the benefits that are covered in the ordinance that are proposed. I think there's some abuses of the bid preference language that's out there right now. These amendments will help us shore up what's going on at the airport and any other of the city's building that's happening right now. I don't think anything that's being presented is any kind of a burden. In fact, I think it's proper and diligent use of taxpayers' money to ensure the basic rights of all employees that are working in the construction industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamoureux. Calvin Fors. And Jeff Worthington will be next.
Good evening, council members. I'm Calvin Fors, represented with the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters. I've been up here several times speaking on things of this matter, so I do applaud you on your efforts to clarify some language. There's a lot of abuses out there in the construction industry. I've been up in front of this council many times talking about it, so this is a step in the right direction. I would implore you to take the next step, and that is enforcement. You can write all you want. You can put a speed limit sign every 10 feet on the road, but if nobody is out there pulling you over and making you pay for it, then it really doesn't mean anything. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. Like I say, that's not to criticize you for your efforts. I do applaud you with those efforts. But again, the next step is going to be some enforcement. There has been massive abuses. I see it almost every day. Public Works especially, hand projects, you know, state money, local money, private money, it doesn't matter. It's stealing tax wages from the communities. It's it doesn't provide for protection for the workforce, be it workers' comp, be it unemployment, anything like that. There has been abuses out at the airport with one of the contractors out there. And we just want to try to get this resolved. I appreciate the comments of the rep from the Electrical Workers Union. That's what we're about, is making sure that the guys that are on these projects, you know, they have a good wage, they have good benefits to support their families and things of that nature. So I do support this, but like I say, that's one step. The next step, one foot in front of the other. Now let's make sure that if people are not in compliance, that you go with your city codes and you pull their contract and kick them off the job. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Forrs. Jeff Worthington, followed by Joseph Hatch, and Mr. Hatch's card is the last card that I have on this.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Worthington, president of the Utah AFL-CIO. I represent all the organized labor in the state of Utah. And I echo the comments of Russ Lamoureux and our brother Carpenter, and that this is much needed. The amendments that have been added to this does give it bite and teeth, I believe, as we spoke at the last meeting that we had on it. And at that meeting, Councilwoman Mendenhall, I believe you asked me a question of who we have these agreements with already. I brought that tonight. We have it with Salt Lake County, Taylorsville, Meadville, Murray, the Catholic Diocese, and of course we're putting more bite into the city's agreement. And I applaud you for taking this action. This protects the workers that are out there so that they are not abused, as has been said before. And I appreciate all of your effort going into this, and we will provide the quality work, and we are happy that you are willing to provide the protection also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Worthington. Joseph Hatch. And if there's anybody else interested in speaking, please come forward after Mr. Hatch, and then be sure to fill a card out so we can have the record.
Joseph Hatch, I'm attorney for the building trades and the Utah AFL-CIO. This has been a product of long discussions between labor and the building trades and Salt Lake City for over a year in an effort to strengthen the bid preferences out at on projects, and also to give a mechanism for enforcement when there's violations. There have been, we think, people who have been violating, contractors who have been violating the standards, the minimal standards that Salt Lake City put in its bid preference, and now we would have an opportunity to adjust that and see if that's and correct that. This is a wonderful first step, and I want to applaud the City Council for taking it, and also thank you for putting us on before the inland port comment period. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hatch. If there is nobody else interested in speaking to this item, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close this public hearing, suspend the rules, and adopt the ordinance amending City Code Section 3.24.115 relating to building improvements or public works projects.
Second.
Motion by Council Member Mendenhall, second by Council Member Kitchen. Any discussion to this item?
I want to thank my peers on the council, and Councilmember Luke in particular, for helping us advance this conversation. I want to thank the labor workers, the labor union workers who've come out to our council meetings more nights than I can count, brought your families out to these meetings, and for your willingness to come to the table, and the administration for bringing the engineers to the table to make sure that what we've produced is something that we can enforce and we can execute. And I want to share that as a council member, I'm committed to funding the enforcement needs of the city. We've had the beginnings of those conversations as we've gone through the work session process for this particular ordinance update. And we're going to keep this conversation going. So hopefully it's a dialogue that we keep having with the labor community.
Thank you, Councilmember Mendenhall. Any other discussion? I would like to also thank all of the laborers who have attended our meetings in the past, who have been talking to us about this ordinance. It truly, when I think about what it is Salt Lake City does and what makes us great, it really is the workmanship that is done on all of the projects that are city projects, whether it be our streets, whether it be the restoration of buildings like this, whether it be the construction of new buildings, or whether it be the construction of a major international airport. None of that we would not be successful without the skilled labor support from all of you. To Mr. Worthington's point about the other municipalities, thank you for sharing that. I do want to remind everyone that Salt Lake City was the first to have this ordinance, and tonight this adds teeth to that ordinance. We will now, the administration will have the tools necessary to actually enforce this ordinance the way that it was originally intended to be enforced. And to Councilmember Mendenhall's point, I too will stand with her if there are additional resources that are needed in order to fulfill those endorsements. We will move those forward. With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Item number 5 is an ordinance regarding 1332 and 1334 East, 500 South rezone. I have a couple of cards on this one. The first is from Charles Pioli, and the second is from Elizabeth Waite.
Hello, my name is Charles Pioli, and I'm a board member at Friendship Manor. I know that Elizabeth Waite sent an email to Derek Kitchen and a couple of other council members, I'm not sure whom. But what I would like to emphasize about this is the street parking. This piece of property is a postage stamp sized piece of property. It faces Fifth South. One side's Friendship Manor, the other side's Mount Olive. There is no potential for off-street parking. And Friendship Manor Board really is concerned about making sure that there is within the design of this whole thing off-street parking, especially when I see commercial component. Just, scares the heck out of us. So anyway, I'm not sure what the rezoning of an RMU 45 is. I don't know the height. I don't know what the requirements are to meet that. But I would like the council to definitely reflect on parking for this structure or whatever this company wants to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pioli. Elizabeth Waite, or I should probably say State Representative Elizabeth Waite, followed by Tom Bagman.
Thank you. I'm on the board of Friendship Manor, which is in the property adjacent to the property being considered. One of the things that I wanted to point out about this consideration is at the zoning meeting where there was a recommendation for rezoning, the Community Council reported a unanimous vote to support changing the zoning for this property. However, at that Community Council meeting, none of the neighbors had been aware or invited to speak and represent the properties. So the Community Council voted and brought that recommendation, but none of the neighboring properties had been able to participate in that conversation. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is an alternative to the proposed type of development, and that is that for years and years and years, the board of Friendship Manor and also the residents of Friendship Manor have been interested in and approached the owner and previous owner about the potential of purchasing the property for developing a community garden. So we've had different concepts of how that could work in that space to the benefit of all of the neighbors, particularly as Charles was speaking about managing the situation so that it doesn't invite some really serious parking problems that we can see. We just anticipate that they would overflow into the Friendship Manor lot and create all sorts of hazards for people who can't dodge cars really easily, because our residents are seniors and handicapped, disabled. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Waite. I apologize, it's not Tom Bagman, it's Tom Barman. So Mr. Barman and Ed Loiters will be next.
Thank you to the council. My name is Tom Barman. I am a resident of Friendship Manor. I'm also an officer of the Friendship Manor Residents Association, and thereby speak on behalf of the residents. Friendship Manor has approximately 200 elderly residents. The median age of residents is in the mid-70s, and there are quite a few much more elderly residents than that. I have brought with me several residents from Friendship Manor, and many more would have liked to have attended this meeting. However, they are confined to walkers and wheelchairs and are unable to make the trek from Friendship Manor to City Hall. City Hall also not being a particularly friendly building for people who have disabilities. I will repeat the comments that Charles made as the first speaker on this matter. The building at issue, if it is approved to its current design, is one that will inevitably, both during construction and thereafter, create a traffic density that is a source of great concern to the residents of Friendship Manor. The parking lot and road access through Friendship Manor is often used by other people as a thoroughfare between 5th and 13th. And we are very concerned that there will, with this increased density, particularly the traffic density, be much greater use of our parking lot as a thoroughfare. And Friendship Manor residents and the people who park frequently in our parking lot for the Unitarian Church next door are very cognizant of the issues and take great care when driving through the parking lot. But we are very concerned that new people coming to the building, and particularly those who might be using the proposed commercial space, will not be aware of the nature of the elderly people in and around the building. It should also be noted that the building itself uses plots of land adjacent to the parking lot owned by Friendship Manor, so that there is constant foot traffic around the parking lot by the residents. So to summarize,
if you could just finish you've hit your 2 minutes, but if you could just quickly
I will.
Close.
To
Thank
summarize, the piece of land is, in effect, as was stated, a postage stamp, and increasing the traffic density through the parking lot puts residents of Friendship Manor at great risk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barman. Ed Loiters, followed by Reverend Rossi. And the Reverend's card is the last card that I have, so if there is anyone else interested in speaking, be sure to fill a card out, and then you can come forward after Reverend Rossi.
I'm Ed Leaders. I'm a professor of English emeritus at the university, and I have lived in Friendship Manor by choice for the last 15 years. So I feel I can recommend on behalf of a good many of the residents who have been there with me, the new ones who have arrived, and more important, those yet to be residents in future years. My concern, I want to say at the outset, is for safety. I want to draw the distinction as clearly as I can between what we're all aware of with the aged and the problems of nursing homes in which people have round-the-clock care or something close to that. And this is not the case in Friendship Manor. The distinction is that we are a retirement hotel of elderly people. I'm now 95 years old, so I think I can qualify also in that category. The safety element has been one very important to me and to my colleagues, fellow residents, for a long time. That goes for our indoor lives, but equally because most of us in one way or another are either mobile or movable, and we spend as much time outside in the garden on one side and on the other in this area which is under consideration. The safety for myself is obviously one of sight. I am in Friendship Manor in one respect in anticipation of the loss of my macula.
Time.
As a macula degenerate, I have lost everything that enables me to read, but I still have, thank goodness and thank God, the use of my peripheral vision.
Mr. Leaders, thank
I
you.
don't see what is directly in front of me. You can understand, therefore, why I have some misgivings about a situation of
Mr.
moving
Leaders,
around
You've reached your 2
outside
minutes.
Friendship Manor with more traffic, with people who are not among us and recognize the fact that a good many of us have handicaps of a sort which limit the way we can see what's going on around us or be aware of our own movements to avoid
Mr. Leaders, thank you very much for your
whatever danger
comments.
might be involved.
We
So I
appreciate you being
this
here.
opportunity to tell you from the residents' point of view why we are concerned about our safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Rossi is the final card that I have. Are there any other folks here interested in speaking to this issue? Okay.
Hello, thank you for hearing me. I am Mareka Rossi. I'm the pastor at First Congregational Church. We are on the board both at Friendship Manor and at Mount Olivet, so I'm speaking as a board member for each one of those. We are very, very concerned about construction in this place. There's no on-the-street parking, as people have said, and it is a very narrow piece of property. So those construction vehicles are going to have to park somewhere. And, you know, getting vehicles in and out and of either of those two places is going to be very difficult. So we hope that you will not approve this, and thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Reverend. Ian Kaplan.
Thank you, Council, for your time. I'm Ian Kaplan. I represent the development and architecture team on this project. I just want to note that from the very beginning, we actually alerted the Community Council before we submitted the rezoned application. We presented to Community Council, and we welcomed comment from the community from the very beginning. We also reached out to Friendship Manor, had a meeting with their board at the facility, spoke with several of them, and at one point we even talked about a shared development, expanding their potential facility, and after several months of silence, we essentially followed up on the issue and heard that they were not interested in a shared development or any sort of compromise, and were told to, quote, do what we want on the project. So we've gone above and beyond to try to accommodate their needs. We are acutely aware of the traffic concern. I assure you that the development proposal is within the meets and bounds of the actual zoning requirements. We are meeting our minimum parking requirements, and because of our proximity to transit, we are hoping that we are actually attracting individuals that use that transit as opposed to driving vehicles, which we all know is a kind of a future hope for our city. I did leave my contact information on the whiteboard at that meeting with my personal phone number, my email, and I have not heard anything from the residents since then. So I believe I've done what I can to try to accommodate their needs, and I'm still open to the conversation with Friendship Manor moving forward, but I'm here, so thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. If there are no further speakers, I will look for a motion from the council.
Mr. Chair, I would move that the council continue the public hearing to a future council meeting.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Fowler, second by Councilmember Mendenhall. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The next item is number 6, an ordinance regarding 1230 West, 200 South rezone. And I have one card on this one. from Nigel Swaby. If there's anybody else who's interested, you'll pass on speaking. Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to 1230 West, 200 South rezone? Seeing none, I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Johnston, second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion of this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The next item is an ordinance related to inland port zoning text amendment, and I do have a few cards on this one. The first is Heather Dove, followed by Robert Goodman.
Good evening. I'm Heather Dove, and I'm here on behalf of Great Salt Lake Audubon. Great Salt Lake Audubon is in support of the Planning Commission's recommendations to require impact mitigation plans before conditional use approval and permitting are granted. And we also agree with the Planning Commission that it is critical that as much information as possible be available before decisions are made regarding approval. It behooves the city to make informed decisions when the health of the environment is at stake. Because of the way the inland port legislation was written, the city has a rather reduced power to determine what ultimately goes into that port. To not require impact mitigation plans before approval and permitting would mean the city would be relinquishing what little control it has to determine what uses are permitted in the port. So, and finally, we are also in support of the planning director having the authority to request and obtain third-party assessments for any or all of the mitigation plans. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Dove. Robert Goodman, followed by Dita Seed.
Thank you to the council. Yeah, as a homeowner, my primary concerns do pertain to the air quality and the environmental impact of the inland port. Coincidentally, if we have the capabilities, I would like the inland port to be under as much CD control and local control as possible. I personally feel like you guys hold my interests best. Lastly, I hope that the jobs that the inland port brings in, I hope that there's a way to hire individuals and citizens from the city and the community, as opposed to kind of hiring other people from other different locations. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area originally, and within the past 10, 15 years, there's been drastic change to that area, and a lot of problems that have already been there, especially regarding housing, have not been addressed, and they've only gotten more and more severe as time passes. So those are my concerns as a citizen here. Thank you to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Dita Seed, followed by Dean Dinas.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Dita Seed. I'm with the Coalition for Port Reform, which is made up of 13 civic, community, environmental, and conservation organizations. And I want to thank you for your careful thought, time, and attention on this issue. I know all of you are going above and beyond on this issue on the inland port, and actually it shows, because I think Salt Lake City is doing a really good job, all of Salt Lake City, the administration and the council. And absolutely the best information about what's happening with the inland port and the most thoughtful planning is coming from all of you. So thank you for that. And to that, you're helping to ensure that the values we hold as a city are reflected in the planning process and policy decisions regarding the city's role in the port. And tonight, we're here to talk about another opportunity for you to have a role in the planning process for the port, and that is through the Planning Commission's recommendations for inland port uses, which we wholeheartedly support. It was a Herculean project to get this done in the short time frame that the legislature allowed us, and the planning staff really and the administration stepped up and held a whole bunch of meetings, did a lot of community engagement, and I think it paid off in the final product. So thank you to everybody who's been involved in that. They're good recommendations, and the ordinance that you're considering reflects Salt Lake City's values and the policies those values have helped to create. As a city, we're working on everything from lowering our climate emissions to building an energy-efficient airport to clean air to reducing the use of pesticides, and this ordinance, the overlay, will take us another step in that direction. So please support the Planning Commission or adopt the Planning Commission recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Seed. Dean Dinas, followed by Dave Iltis.
Esteemed members of the council and mayor, I'm not a resident of Salt Lake City specifically, but I breathe the same air we all do along the Wasatch Front. I represent Key Technologies, Inc., a 2-decade-long resident of the state of Utah, and we are engaged in proactive, best available control technology applications for transportation, freight transportation specifically, and construction equipment as they apply to the Inland Port project. Within the planning process specifically, it says in this ordinance that these changes would bring city code in line with state code requirements, and that conditional use under the proposed zoning overlay would require an impact mitigation plan. I propose 3 things. A, conditional use permits should include construction contractors and freight transportation businesses that want to participate in the inland port. And as part of the planning process, those conditional use permits should include air quality impacts, as in mitigation. Zoning overlay should include impact mitigation plans for individual businesses occupying the inland port, construction, related freight, and as part of the best available control technologies required by the Utah Division of Air Quality if we're in state code congruency. And finally, temporary storage of natural resources should include natural gas as a replacement for diesel fuel technologies in freight-related operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dinas. Dave Iltis, followed by Nigel Swaby.
My name's Dave Iltis. As you probably all know, this is one of the most tragic developments in Salt Lake City's environmental, for the environment in Salt Lake City in recent memory. We're going to see the destruction of the last of the valley grasslands that are out there in that area. The wetlands on 2200 West are all but gone, and they're going to certainly be filled in and disappear as a result of this. No one paid attention to the wetlands on 2200 West, and I doubt that once this is rolling, people are going to pay much attention to the environmental destruction out here. What are we going to lose in terms of habitat for antelope, deer, birds, wildlife, fox, etc., as this goes in? I think you're doing the best, making the best of a bad situation. I would encourage you to follow through with the talk of suing the state of Utah to hopefully stop this silliness. It's an environmental tragedy. Given the ordinance itself, please do preserve as much as you can of the Northwest Quadrant Master Plan, and please do add intent to make sure that complete streets are followed, the Complete Streets Ordinance is followed within the confines of the transportation system of the Northwest, of the Inland Port and the Northwest Quadrant, and shed a tear for the last remaining grasslands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. Nigel Swaby, followed by Nicole Salt.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. I am following up on a letter that I'm Nigel Swaby. I'm chair of the River District Chamber, and we sent a letter probably 6 weeks ago when this planning process started with several specific ideas of what we'd like to see. What the planning department has come up under the short deadline that they had is something that we support. We believe that conditional use for building permits in the area will make sense, as the Planning Commission will be able to take a look at each individual project and determine what the best use and mitigation will be on it. Definitely want to provide some gratitude to the Planning Commission and their outreach to the communities that we serve, and operating under that tight deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swaby. Nicole Salt, followed by Jean Tibin. And Jean's is the last card that I have.
Hi. I live off of 2610 North, 2200 West, on the Northwest Quadrant. I do appreciate that our neighborhood is no longer in the port. However, I do worry about what is going to go around like our neighborhood. We are like the last agriculture. Section in Salt Lake, I am concerned about the zoning around our neighborhood and the destruction that the port could cause to the open lands out there, the air quality, the wildlife, and the bird migration. You should see it out there. It's beautiful. I know the city is limited to what goes on in the border of the port, but you guys do have control on what goes on outside. So across the street, there is plans of future development. It is like a beautiful, it's swampy, there's wetlands. I don't know how anybody would even consider building out there, because it is a drought. Once the drought is over, it's just gonna be wet. So that's all I have to say, is just think about what is on the outside. Just because these builders buy these properties with the intent to make them as commercial, we don't have to let them build commercial buildings. There's a cute little lady down the road. She bought a piece of property. Because she took out the foundation, the city wouldn't allow her to build her home. So, I mean, when you buy a piece of property, you're taking a gamble. So that's all I have to say. Just think about once we build, we can't restore the land back.
Thank you, Ms. Salt. Jean Tabin is the final card that I have. Is there anyone else who is interested in speaking to this?
I'm Jean Tabin, and I recently got interested in what was going on when I became a member of the Friends of the Great Salt Lake after listening to a lecture at Westminster College. I do want to thank the mayor and the Planning Commission for working together and gathering community input, developing these recommendations for the legislature in regards to the inland port. We absolutely need good standards for the inland port uses. I am really, really concerned, and I would like to see it as you to sue or to stop it, do whatever you can to stop this inland port. Because I am very concerned about air pollution, water pollution, the drought that we're having, habitat and wildlife loss, health of the Great Salt Lake in general, and its migratory birds. I hadn't even realized that the white pelican, they have their offspring in the Great Salt Lake in a huge number. I can't remember if it's 25% of the world's white pelicans depend on the Great Salt Lake, and they're not the only birds. And of course, the people living in the area of the Great Salt, of our Great Salt Lake Valley. If we continue to take too much water from the Great Salt Lake, I have heard it said that we may, end up with another Dust Bowl. We just cannot keep taking water and developing this area. And again, we're in a drought. And if we do that, we could end up really, not just hurting the Great Salt Lake, but hurting the entire area. So please continue to do your best to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tabin. Seeing no further comments, I'll look for a motion from the council.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close this public hearing and note that a second public hearing on the Inland Port petition is scheduled for November 27th.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Rogers? Oh, Johnston. Okay. Any discussion of this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The next item is an ordinance regarding FB UN2 building height zoning text amendment. And I have two cards on this one. Paul Johnson, followed by Lee Farnsworth.
Good evening. My name is Paul Johnson. I'm a homeowner and resident in the Central Ninth community. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Central Ninth Community Council Board, of which I am a member. The board is very interested in hearing more about Mr. Alfondri's proposed project, a project of this size and impact in the heart of our neighborhood, along with the zoning change requested, needs engagement and the support of its community to better succeed. Unfortunately, scheduling conflicts have prevented Mr. Alfondri from attending October and November community council meetings and presenting and discussing the project with the Central Ninth neighbors. Central Ninth is a rapidly evolving, vibrant community undergoing major changes with numerous projects covering a very small geographic area, most of which have occurred over a very short period of time. A major concern of the community with this zoning request is the fear support of the project may set precedent or lead the City Council to the belief there is support for this type of zoning change on the north side of 900 South, which borders form-based urban neighborhood 1 zone neighborhoods on Washington and Jefferson Street. The board feels it is of utmost importance for the Central Ninth community to be able to engage directly with Mr. Alfondri before any final decisions regarding the zoning change are made. A coffee klatch has been scheduled for this upcoming Saturday, November 17th, which will afford the Central Ninth community this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Lee Farnsworth.
My name is Lee Farnsworth. I live in Provo, Utah, and I own property called Central Ninth Place, which is located about 40 yards away from the proposed change. We bought the property originally at 934 Washington Street thinking it was a residential zone. We bought it for a handicapped veteran son. Then all of a sudden, a 6-story building, you may have seen it when they made the presentation, popped up right next door to it, which isn't good for a person who suffers from depression. So we bought the lot next door to make sure that another one didn't pop up on that side and put him in a canyon. And then they changed the zoning. And we thought, well, with the new zoning, maybe we could do something with our property that would benefit our son over time and other members of our family. So we, with the help of the redevelopment agency, we have built 13 townhouse apartments there that are 2 stories high. And in the presentation that was made to you, I could see the corner of our property there with this 6-story multicolored building right next to it. And the developer was using that as an excuse for you to change the zoning for him. And I love what they're doing. I mean, they're going to make a great improvement, and it's within the spirit of the Central Ninth District to have an interacting urban development with transit-oriented. It was great, and the picture they presented was beautiful. Oh, that's wonderful. But what they showed you a picture of was a 4-story building, and then wanting to raise, and a 5-story building on the corner, which is legal. But they want to raise that one to make it straight across 50 feet, 60 feet high or higher, and 5 stories. And I like the idea, but right next to it, there's a club across the street from it, and we're next to the club behind it. And my concern is that
Time.
once we start violating the zoning that we put in there for a good purpose, that the next person is going to say, well, I'm going to buy that club up, and I'm going to put myself a 5-story building there. And here we are sandwiched between a 6-story and a 5-story. And it's not good.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Farnsworth.
I served as a legislator for 8 years, and I know the importance of making laws and then upholding the laws once we make them. Both of my neighbors refused to obey
Mr.
the
Farnsworth,
city
you've hit your 2-minute
requirement
limit,
for
so
the zoning.
if you could
But
wrap up your
anyway,
comments.
you know my feelings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do not have any other cards. Is there anyone else interested in speaking to this issue? Councilmember Mendenhall.
I move that the council continue this public hearing to a future council meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Fowler. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We now have 2 more items that will be heard as one public hearing. This is a grant application for the Three Creeks Confluences 2018 grant and a grant application for the State Homeland Security and Law Enforcement Terrorism Training Program. And I do not have any cards for either of these. Is anybody interested in speaking to these 2 items? Okay, I do not see anyone ready to speak.
Mr.
Look for a
Chair.
motion. Councilmember Rogers.
I move that the council close the public hearing and refer items B9 and B10 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rogers, second by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We'll now move to item C on our agenda, which is potential action items. This is an ordinance regarding a street closure at 1100 West between 900 South and Hayes Avenue. And I'll look for a motion from the council.
Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt an ordinance closing a portion of 1100 West between 9th South and Hayes Avenue.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Johnston, second by Councilmember Rogers. Any discussion to this item? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. We will now, at item D on our agenda, comments and questions to the mayor from the city council. Mayor Biskupski, thank you for being here. David Litvak, thank you also for being here. Councilmember Kitchen has a question for the mayor.
It's actually a comment. You know, now that we're 1 week away from the election and we are seeing more and more of the results, I just wanted to applaud the administration's efforts for community engagement on the bond. I think you did a really good job and obviously generated a lot of support. So congratulations and thank you for doing a good job there.
Any other questions for the mayor? Okay, again, thank you for being here, Mayor. Now we will open it up to comments to the city council. For those who are here to talk about Block 67, here is your opportunity to address the council. I do have a couple of cards. The first is from Rod Miller, followed by Robert Goodman. Mr. Miller?
I'm Rod Miller. I'm a longtime city resident, and I'd like to request that the City Council reconsider the closure of City Creek Canyon to bicyclists during the 9 days of rifle deer hunt. Only a handful of hunters use the canyon on most days. To deny access to the canyon to the perhaps 80-plus bicycle riders who might enjoy the canyon on a beautiful fall day for a handful of hunters seems a misappropriation of a treasured resource. The urban oasis of City Creek Canyon, with its aesthetic appeal, peaceful solitude, and opportunity for safe exercise, should be managed in a manner that maximizes its offering. Opening the canyon to bicyclists during the rifle deer hunt does this. Perhaps the odd, even schedule of canyon use during the summer months could be reinstituted for the 9 days of rifle deer hunt, with bicyclists eligible to use the canyon on odd-numbered days. Be creative in considering options. The gatekeeper employed in the canyon entrance during rifle deer hunt could provide pertinent information relating to canyon use by hunters during the 9-day period. This information could help in your evaluation of the merits of this proposal and your determination of an outcome should you decide to take action. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Robert Goodman, followed by Jeff Bear, and Jeff's is the last card that I have. So if you would like to speak, quickly fill out a yellow card. Oh, I have one more.
Thank you to the council. Let's see. Once again, I would like to speak in support of the Free Fair Day you guys did last year. I think that was really great what the city did last year. And since, winter's here again and inversion's getting bad again, I would recommend, if possible, doing more Free Fair Days. Additionally, I was just at a fundraiser for a local environmental nonprofit group that I volunteer for. And I believe they're going to be advocating for the state to fund Free Fair Days and similar incentives. So if there's any way to kind of accrue data, beneficial data about or regarding the Air Fair Days, that would be tremendous. And I think it's a great thing that we do, and it helps mitigate with the poor air quality here. Thank you to the council. Thank you to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Jeff Bear, followed by Jim Webster.
Good evening. I'd like to talk about scooters. I know you've probably heard enough, but it's nice to see more and more people riding them correctly, but it's still frustrating to hear giggles and screams behind you and 4 and 5 come flying down the sidewalk and you have to get out of the way. I was happy and excited when I saw the news article about Walk Your Wheels program. The frustration I have is I still haven't seen that spray painted anywhere on the sidewalk on any of the areas downtown. So I hope that that's moving forward. Again, I think it's just a question of education. I think scooters are a great way to get people out of cars and give them transit options, but again, it's comes down to education, I believe. The second issue I want to talk about, I've been wanted to come for several weeks, but I have had a class on Tuesday nights, and that's these wonderful little Shop Now Deals flyers. They get thrown on your driveway every single Sunday. I don't know if Utah Media Group even has a business license in Salt Lake City. They are located in West Valley. You are required to opt out, but when you've never even opted in, to opt out you have to, and this just changed. You had to go to their website, enter your name, your address, and your email address, but yet their terms of service, nowhere did it state that they will not sell your information. So they're just gathering your information and can turn around and sell it. I don't have a problem with charities, nonprofits, et cetera, occasionally putting a flyer or something on my driveway or my door, but when this is a business doing this every single week, and majority of my neighbors don't want it, they never pick it up, there'll be 3 and 4 lying on their driveway, they get blown around on windy days. On my community's Facebook page, there are people that have posted that they've opted out 3 times. They've even talked to the person coming around delivering it, telling them they don't want it, and it still keeps coming. So I don't know what can be done, but this just is ridiculous.
Thank you, Mr. Bear.
Thank you.
Jim Webster is the final card. Oh, nope, there's another one.
Good, I don't want to be the last. Jim Webster, live in Yale Crest area. Appreciate the opportunity of addressing the council. 2 items. One, the university announced today they're going to expand bicycles. At the present time, the traffic through the Yale Crest neighborhood and other surrounding neighborhoods is just plain untenable. And the parking situation as a result of the football games is not just simply inconvenient. They're parking in our driveways. It's just they're parking illegally. Traffic people understand that. Something has got to be done. the university needs to be held accountable for the impact on our neighborhoods. Second item is, as much as I appreciate the city's efforts to promote sustainability, particularly solar, I was overcharged by the new standards, $650. In other words, I was charged over 10% of the total installation cost just for fees. And the inspector drove by, did not even look at the roof, did not even look at the connections, did not even do anything other than talk to the contractors. I would really appreciate it if it's right to reduce that number to $200 instead of the $850 that I was charged. I would really appreciate a refund. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. And the final card is from Dave Iltis.
It's very nice to see the bond, the transportation bond that passed, and the increase in sales tax that's going to transportation, as well as the county's increase in sales tax going to transportation. But transportation is currently one of the major contributors to global warming and climate change. And if we're going to be looking at spending, I think 87 plus 33 million, $120 million on transportation in Salt Lake City, we have an inadequate and loophole-ridden complete streets ordinance currently, and we have no transportation master plan, although there's funding for that, and we have no good momentum in terms of bike lanes and better sidewalks in the city. And we need to ensure that the spending of this large amount of money to redo the roadways is done in a manner that helps to promote a sustainable Salt Lake. We really, really need to do that, and we need to step up so we don't have things happen like on 21st South or 7th South ever again. That should never have been overruled by the mayor. We needed bike lanes there. We need complete streets. Every time a roadway is repaved, every time there's new chip seal, every time it's restriped, it needs to be restriped in a thoughtful manner. And I just ask you, I know that the council's considering an update to the complete streets ordinance. Please make this as absolutely strong and bulletproof as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iltis. So that will conclude our comments, our general comments. We'll now go to item F on our agenda, which is unfinished business. There's an ordinance, limitations on the sale of dogs, cats, rabbits, and commercial animal establishments. Councilmember Fowler has requested.
I think some council members would like to arm wrestle for the.
Hey, I'm ready. I heard from one of you.
We can all make the motion. We can make it together.
I was working my way down there.
I'll look to Councilmember Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the council adopt an ordinance that places limitations on the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits at commercial animal establishments.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Fowler, second by Councilmember Wharton. Any discussion to this item?
If I may, I was recently speaking with people at Best Friends of Utah, and I know how in support of this ordinance they are, and are very, that Mr. Bradshaw couldn't be here today because he's in his own council meeting, but very excited that this is moving forward on behalf of Best Friends Utah, and so am I, and I appreciate, I know this issue came up last year, so I appreciate Madam Chair and the council for putting this back on the agenda and getting it passed this year, so.
I also am just really excited to vote on this. I don't know that, I feel I gave an impassioned speech during our work session, but yeah, we don't always have the opportunity to protect, vote on these types of things in Salt Lake and to protect animals. And I know that this is something that's really important to me personally and to the constituents that I represent, who do see their animals as family, and we want to be able to protect them as much as we can.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. Any other comments? I would just like to say that as a city council, we often deal with very heady issues, whether it's the inland port, whether it's public safety, infrastructure, our budget, the reconstruction of the airport, a lot of very, very serious things. There are very few times where we're able to vote on something that really is nice, and just all around nice. And this is one of those times. So I want to thank all the advocates who have been working with council staff, administrative staff, to bring this forward. And at this point, I will call for a vote. All in favor of this ordinance?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Everyone loves dogs, cats, and rabbits. So the motion passes unanimously. I'll now look for a motion for the council on the consent agenda.
I move approval.
Motion by Councilmember Mendenhall, second by Councilmember Kitchen. Any discussion to the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is passed, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.